Good morning, lovely people. Welcome to another edition of Newspaper Review on Emirate Radio. We are located behind Federal Ministry of Environment of Hojeba with the law in Kwara State, Nigeria. I am Misturah Issa. Today we'll be looking at the various newspaper pages for our headlines. First, on Punch newspaper, federal government unveils agri reform moves to create 21 million jobs. Also on Daily Post newspaper, Peter Obi meets Afenifere leader Oba Oladipo Olaitan. And on Guardian newspaper, Atiku meets US envoy in Abuja, flays tribalism in Nigeria. Also on our own very own royal news, Abia government pledges action against small arms. Heading to the Punch newspaper, NEMA leads evacuation as flood ravaged Adamawa communities. On to Daily Post newspaper, petrol tanker accident claimed 2 lives in Kwara. On royal news, flood swept Lagos, standing residents and vehicles. Also on Punch newspaper, Ibadan should not produce next Oyo governor, group insists. And lastly, on the Nation newspaper, senior secondary school to offer Chinese language Mandarin. Welcome back. Let's take a look at the stories making headline this morning. Starting with the Punch newspaper, federal government unveils agri reforms, move to create 21 million jobs. The federal government yesterday rolled out a slew of new incentives to attract agricultural investment, which it said could create 21 million jobs in the country. It also pledged reform to expand irrigation, improve access to credit, and create millions of rural jobs under President Bola Tinubu's economic agenda. Vice President Kashim Shettima outlined the plans at the Food and Agriculture Organization National and Sub-Regional Hand-in-Hand Investment Forum in Abuja, calling hunger the great equalizer that reveals our vulnerability and the sheer fragility of our existence. Senior Special Assistant to the Vice President on Media and Communication, Sterling Huocha, revealed details yesterday in a meeting. More insensitive farmer as federal government unveiled new agri investment incentive. The measures include single window platforms for land registration, strengthened agricultural credit system, large-scale mechanization, and strategic irrigation projects. Also on Daily Post newspaper, Peter Obi meets Afenifere leader Oba Oladipo Olaitan. Former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi met with leadership of the Pan-Yoruba socio-political organization Afenifere Oba Oladipo Olaitan. Obi described his meeting with Olaitan as fruitful, where they discussed issues around the current situation in Nigeria. Posting on X, the former presidential candidate expressed his commitment to all-inclusive one Nigeria. He wrote yesterday, the 16th of September 2025, that he met with the leadership of the Pan-Yoruba socio-political organization Afenifere under the leadership of Oba Oladipo Olaitan, who is also the leader of the ethnic Nigerian nationality comprising Pandev and Middle Belt Forum. Moving to the Guardian newspaper, Atiku meets US envoy in Abuja, flies tribalism in Nigeria. Former Vice President of Nigeria Atiku Abubakar yesterday led a delegation on a courtesy visit to the United States Ambassador Richard Mills Jr. in Abuja. This was all the Progressive Congress described the former VP's alarm on hunger and insecurity as false, saying the statement on Monday was a new low in a recent streak of incendiary commentaries. Atiku, in a post on his official Facebook account while sharing image from the meeting, disclosed that his discussion with the envoy centered on the partnership between Nigeria and the US, particularly on democracy and security. The post read, "This afternoon, I had the honor of leading a delegation on a courtesy visit to the U.S. Ambassador Richard Mills Jr. in Abuja. Our discussion focused on strengthening the enduring partnership between Nigeria and the U.S., particularly in the areas of advancing democracy, security, and promoting shared prosperity." Atiku, a member of the African Democratic Congress (ADC), who is aspiring for the country's top job in 2027, described tribalism as the ban of national progress and a malignant disease that must be shunned at all costs by all, particularly the masses. According to him, the Hellies stand out as the most culpable in using tribalism as a divisive gimmick to set one ethnic group against the other. The endpoint of these divisive antics, he added, is geared toward achieving their political ambition by asking their tribesmen not to vote for a particular contestant for being so unfortunate to have hailed from another tribe, rather than assess him by his sterling qualities. Against this background, he advised the electorate to ensure the deadly malice of tribalism in choosing and electing their leaders, he advised. Also on our own very homeboy news page, Abia government pledges action against small arms. Abia State Governor Alex Otti has retweeted his administration commitment to collaborating with federal agencies to curb the proliferation of small arms and light weapons in Nigeria. The governor made the remark while receiving a delegation led by Captain Chris Anusim, the newly appointed Southeast Zonal Director of the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons at his office. Governor Otis stressed the link between small arms and criminal activity, noting that virtually all the crimes you see around are committed with light weapons and small arms. If we don't eliminate them or at least reduce them to the barest minimum, then we cannot have peace. He highlighted that his administration is actively working with security agencies to prevent criminals fleeing from neighboring states from settling in Abia, emphasized the importance of regional cooperation in maintaining law and order. Oti also expressed gratitude to the federal government for establishing the center and thanked President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for appointing DIG Johnson Babatunde Kunkum as Director General. He expressed confidence in the leadership of the center under Kunkum direction. Moving to Punch newspaper, NEMA led evacuation as flood ravaged Adamawa communities. The Yola Operation Office of the National Emergency Management Agency has led search, rescue and evacuation efforts after several flash flooding submerged 13 communities across Yola North and Yola South local government areas of Adamawa State yesterday. The downpour, which began around 4 a.m. and lasted until noon, left worship centers, residential buildings, and business premises undated. Thousands of households were displaced in areas including Damilu, Jambutu, Bature, Wunde, and Chinko, with many families forced to shelter along major roads. This comes barely 2 months after a similar disaster claimed over 30 lives in the state. On Sunday, the federal government had warned that 32 locations across 11 states, including Adamawa, were at risk of heavy rainfall and flooding between September 14 and 18, 2025. Speaking to newsmen, the Executive Secretary of Adamawa State Emergency Management Agency, Dr. Selin Lowry, described the situation as devastating. The spokesperson for the Adamawa State Police Command, SP Suleiman Nguroje, in a statement said the command had deployed its marine unit to support rescue missions. Moving to the Daily Post newspaper, petrol tanker accident claimed 2 lives in Kwara. 2 persons lost their life in a petrol tanker accident and fire at Basa village on the Ilorin-Jebai Highway, Muro local government area of Kwara State yesterday. The deceased were identified as a tanker driver and his motorboy. The tragic incident occurred at about 3:43 p.m. where the petrol tanker, with registration number NSR 966Z0, carrying 30,000 liters of petrol, reportedly lost control, veered off the road and overturned, igniting a massive fire. According to a statement by the spokesman of the State Fire Service, Hassan Adekule, in Ilorin yesterday, emergency crew arrived promptly and extinguished the blaze, preventing further spread to nearby traffic. The director of the Kwara State Fire Service, Prince Falade John Olumuyiwa, commiserated with the families of the deceased and advised all road users, particularly tanker drivers, to exercise the highest level of caution on highways. Flood sweep Lagos, stranding residents and vehicles. Parts of Lagos State were submerged by floodings yesterday morning, following heavy rainfall that began in the early hours. The flooding affected major roads and neighborhoods, including Ikorodu, Ago Palace Way, Okota, Agowonjo, and Lekki, leaving residents stranded and property damaged. In Ikorodu, the downpour destroyed property worth millions of naira, while Alhaji Idowu Street in Akowonjo and roads in Osapa, London, Lekki were heavily flooded. Residents reported being unable to leave their homes or move vehicles safely due to rising water levels. A resident in Akowonjo lamented that just 3 hours of rain and everywhere is flooded, when it is not as if the people living there are not humans. Traffic was severely affected as flooding highways forced vehicles to move slowly or break down, causing gridlock. Still glued to Punch newspaper, Ibadan should not produce next Oyo governor, group insists. A group of eminent indigenes across 22 local government areas of outside Ibadan, the Oyo state capital, under the aegis of Oyo D22 Renewed, has lamented what it described as decades of marginalization in the governance of the state. The group, in an open letter addressed to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, and the national and state chairman of the All Progressive Congress, People Democratic Party, and African Democratic Congress, decree what is called a historic and intolerable imbalance and insensitivity being perpetrated in Oyo State as far as the governorship slot is concerned. Among those who signed the letter were Professor Wande Abimbola, Bishop Ayo Ladigbolu, Professor Suleiman Gbadegeshin, Dr. Adesokan Odebode, Professor Nuwen Tanimowo, Mr. Dokun Alegbe, and Dr. Akin Onidmide, and retired General Kunle Tokun. Since 1983, the group pointed out, Ibadan had produced Omololu Olunloyo, Kolapo Ishola, Lamidi Adesina, Rashidi Ladoja, Abiola Ajimobi, and the incumbent Makinde as governors. They therefore call on all political parties in the state to ensure that their 2027 governorship candidates emerge from the non-Ibadan zones of Ogbomosho, Oyo, Ibarakwa, and Oke-Ogun. They noted that the only non-Ibadan indigene to emerge governor was the late Adebayo Alawa Akala from Ogbomosho, who governed between May 2027 and May 2011. They urge Ibadan indigents to abandon what they term an uncompromising posture and, in the interest of justice, peaceful coexistence, equity, and fairness, to ensure that candidates from the 22 local government outside Ibadan produce the next governor. And lastly, on the Nation newspaper, senior secondary school to offer Chinese language, Mandarin. The Chinese language Mandarin has become one of the foreign languages to be offered in senior secondary schools in Nigeria in the newly reviewed secondary school curriculum. The Education Secretary of the Federal Capital Territory Administration, Dr. Danlami Ayo, announced the development at the inauguration of the Chinese Corner at the Government Secondary School, Tudunwada, Abuja. The project was sponsored by the biggest Chinese construction company in Nigeria, the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation, as part of its corporate social responsibility. Ayo stressed the foresight of the FCT Education Board, which had introduced Mandarin in schools in the territory before the latest review of the curriculum. The FCT Education Secretary also said the inauguration of the new center yesterday brought to 14 number of Chinese centers in Abuja. The centers, he said, were established in secondary schools across the federal capital city. That's in the newspaper review for today. For more in-depth on the stories, please visit the newspaper, and also you can visit our very own newspaper page, Royal News. And once again, I am Misturah Issa. Thanks for listening.